Yay, yes, recording in progress. Awesome. Okay, thank you all so much. I loved the icebreaker and getting to know all of you better and being able to have a lot in common already. So I'm really excited about our time today. I am going to, I'm a visual person. Some of you may also be. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see preparing for MLK Day of Service? Good to go. Okay, got thumbs up. Great. If you want to follow along, whether you are maybe on your phone and you want to use your laptop, or you're on your laptop and want to use your phone, feel free to go to www.menti.com and then put in the code 4718-6423. www.menti.com and enter the code 4718-6423. And once you are in there, you can click that heart button so I know that you're in. Yes, awesome. See the hearts coming. This is just a way for you to stay engaged and interact while also being in a space where I get to just get a pulse on where the group is, what's resonating, what is also being heard. So I also highly would love if you use the chat as well. I don't necessarily want to be all of just a talking head, but I would love to engage with you in the chat. That means if you put something up, more than likely I'm going to read it out loud and invite your comment and your thought, your opinion into the conversation. So I'm really excited about being able to just have this time with you today. And thank you for taking out the time of your busy schedule to have this time with me and this time with us, so we can come once again and do what the peer network is supposed to do. Coordinate with each other, communicate with each other, and be able to see what's going on. So we're going to talk about prepping for MLK Day of Service, but also this is going to be around just project prep in general and what that looks like. We know that there are certain big days that people come out to serve, that people want to come out to partner. One of those biggest days being MLK Day of Service. And so I want us to have the opportunity to talk about that together. If you could put in the chat just where you are right now, specifically with MLK Day of Service. Do you have a particular project that you have already thought about and you're like, yep, we are just making final details around it? If you are like, haven't even thought about it yet, it's I'm on tomorrow, okay? Or I'm on next week and I haven't gotten there yet. Feel free to communicate that and say that. If you're in the brainstorming stage and you're like, yeah, I have a lot of different ideas. I'm gathering different ideas from the community, different ideas from stakeholders. And I'm just in that brainstorming place. So would love to hear where you are. I see Michael, we are putting on a game of Family Feud around civil rights trivia. Wow, that's awesome. Teresa, thought about it, but no confirmed projects. Wilson, we're looking at city events to participate in. Amazing. Awesome. Wilson, in the chat, let me know when you're looking at city events to participate in, is that the staff? Is that you looking for city events for volunteers to participate in? Just would love to hear from you what that looks like and what you're connecting that to. Rose, my org is still working on the brainstorming piece. Okay, awesome. So keep putting those in and we will continue. So I want to definitely frame our time together today and the purpose of our time. We're going to absolutely talk about the background and why we're even here. What is the purpose of this? Why is this happening? We're going to once again talk about community-centered volunteerism. When I was here last time, we had conversations around it, and I want to frame that one more time around what that looks like for this particular lens and perspective when it comes to project building and creation and implementation. And then we're going to talk about moving from a transactional to a transformational space when it comes to projects, communicating long-term support. So I want to quickly talk about the background and what it looked like for me to partner. So this is in itself not a transactional communication for today. This has been a little bit in the works for a while. I am in partnership with United Way of King County, with Alexia and Leanne and Esther, and thinking about what it means to rethink or reimagine or go deeper with the MLK Day of Service. And the reason that we're even thinking about that and that came about is because United Way of King County as an organization itself, and specifically when it comes to volunteer engagement, they've committed to community-centered volunteerism and racial equity, social justice, and of course, being able to be a resource and a partner when it comes to the work that you all are doing. And so we know that oftentimes when we think about a day of service or looking at that one day of giving, it can very much so be a transactional approach. It could also be really heavy lifting for smaller organizations. It can really promote just a one and done type of environment. And honestly, we also know that larger groups can get a lot of things done, but oftentimes, organizations need deeper support, ongoing support throughout the year. And so thinking about what that looks like for organizations, also realizing from a systemic perspective that the issues that our community, our neighbors face wouldn't be solved in a day. But if we can actually get people to think about the day of service as more so as a launching point for change, for their own individual change and for community change, then we can start reimagining what this day could be. And so we wanted to talk to the folks, of course, that were closest to the solutions. We know that, back in, I think Mandela said 2020 or 2021, you all got together and were able to talk about and focus on and listen to each other about the groups 2020. Great. So when that happened, of course, there were some things that came out. This is a part of that process of when some of you were able to get in that focus group together. And one of the things you all specifically talked about were the praises, but also the real headaches, which are understandable, of days of service and what that means. And so when it came to the communication that we got, I was able to go back and look at the communication. And as I'm thinking about, and as Leanne and Esther and all of us are thinking about, what does a reimagined day of service look like? We wanted to go back and see, what did you all say? So here are a couple of quotes that were mentioned specifically about days of service. We are jam-packed on MLK Day and Black History Month, but the rest of the year is a struggle to get consistency. I was in volunteer management for 10 plus years, and I can absolutely agree. MLK Day, we had more volunteers sign up than we had room for or that we could do things for. Black History Month, same way. Someone else said, ideally, we would have volunteers interested in building relationships and community on an ongoing basis. So having that feedback of, once they came and they did what they were supposed to do that day. They were engaged in the project. Most of the time, we never saw those people ever again. Someone else said just reoccurring, having people come out on a regular basis, having engagement outside of super rush big days. So these were some of the pain points that were communicated when talking about, days of service. And, like I said, I have been there. I had been in situations where we had hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and not enough to do, or we didn't have, we had too much to do and things didn't get done. And so navigating this day can definitely be hard and can be intimidating. And that's why we wanted to all come together and communicate how is it that we can really reshape this so that some of these goals may potentially be met, of more consistency, or of more volunteers coming on a regular basis, or us not dealing with the super rush days and not having anybody else come in the next week, or having very few come in the next week. And so let's first, we got to think about just the point of reference, right? Based on the information that you all shared, the information that you know, and then on my experience, Alexa's experiences, we all recognize how most volunteers and organizations can treat MLK Day of Service like it's transactional. So if anybody has been in these positions before, it's a in and out, one and done type situation. I see a couple of hearts coming up. So yep, we that resonates. So one of the things I think that's really important is we have to recognize the language. We talk about, and it is centered around it being a day on, not a day off. And we understand the premise of it's not one of those holidays, for the majority of us, where we, sit at home and we take a break from that day. As far as national service is concerned, they wanted to brand it as a day on, not a day off. And it's called MLK Day of Service. So what the language in itself has done, it's pigeonholed us into thinking about it being just a day. And so we understand that's a little stacked up against us when it comes to a day, but hopefully after we talk through, we'll be able to think about how can we bring people on, not just for the day, but continue to interact with them for the rest of the year. Another part to mention of how it's become transactional, it's a national day, and that prompts volumes of people all at the same time to come and serve. But with that national day, there's not a branding or a communication or a conversation on what is it that you need to do next. There's not a conversation about, okay, now that you've had this day, the work is not done. How do we continue to move forward? Also, most activities are considered short term. It's a day. So what we do is we create a lot of projects and a lot of activities where how can we make sure that volunteers feel like they did something good? So what we're going to do is we're going to have something for them to be able to start and stop in the same day, so that once the end of it comes, we can have a wrap up and we can celebrate and we can say, this many backpacks were packed, or this many different food items were collected, or this is how many things were just, it's quantifiable, right? So what we oftentimes end up doing is saying, what can we do that it starts on that day and that they end on that day? They can celebrate that accomplishment. But in all actuality, there are so many scenarios and opportunities where no, the work actually isn't done. The work is continuous. The work is ongoing. And so absolutely there are, certain activities that can get done, but also what is a hindrance to that is the fact that they sometimes don't come back because they feel like I'm the hero, what's done is done, and it's good to go. And then also most volunteers are not challenged or prompted to come back. I know for so many years when I've gone and conducted MLK Day of Service projects, it's a celebration at the end. But we'll talk about this a little bit more. What does it look like to challenge them at the end, right? We challenge you to come back. We challenge you to make an actual commitment and to not just let this be the one and only day that you come and you serve this organization, because relationships are needing to be built, right? Community is needing to be had. So what does it look like for you to come back? And so most volunteers, what we do is we say, y'all, thank you so much. We're so excited. This is what you were able to do today. We hope to see you again next year. Or we say, we hope you look on our website and see ways to serve. But we don't give them that opportunity. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means to be able to give them the opportunity to shift and come back. So it was really important for us to think about the ways, and it's important for you to think about the ways that this day can be even more centered around transformation, which is absolutely the basis for Dr. King's work. So my work and this particular work is actually very near and dear to me. I'm here in Atlanta, his birthplace, the birthplace of the civil rights movement. I'm about 20 minutes away from his birth home. And so the time that I've conducted MLK Days of Service, it's so important for us to look at it from a community-centered approach and not just a make a volunteer happy approach, right? And so when we talk about community-centered volunteerism, we're specifically talking about, anybody who's wanting to serve, volunteers, faith-based groups, corporations, they make the commitment to serve while recognizing that we, Black and Brown communities, have been intentionally excluded from systems, and that saviorism can run rampant in volunteerism, especially days of service, when it's a one and done scenario, when it's a one and done situation. And understanding that comfort and do good feelings and coddling and band-aid transactions cannot be the goal of our volunteer programs, but we have to understand that that change can be achieved when community dreams are at the center. And so communicating, I've been at an MLK Day of Service, and it's been all about the volunteer. What can we do to make them happy? What can we do to make them comfortable? What can we do to make them feel like this was a success? But then forfeiting, what does actual community impact look like? What does it look like for us to tell them the truth about why they're even serving here in the first place? Are we connecting systems of harm to exactly why they are volunteering? Are we talking about filling the backpacks, but excluding the fact that that particular school has been intentionally excluded from funding because of racism, because of economic exclusion? Being able to actively communicate to volunteers, why is it that they have to volunteer? I love that hashtag, Mandela, hashtag community dreams. That is what this is all about. It's taking the volunteer out of the center, because this is not Disney World. If they want to have fun and get all the things, like, they can go to Disney World. This is about community impact. And sometimes it's not glamorous. And sometimes it's not, all butterflies and bunny rabbits, but it's about impact. And if you can communicate impact and communicate why they're volunteering in the first place, that is where we move from that transaction to that transformation. And mind you, Leanne brought this up a couple of days ago. It's okay that, right now we need to get these envelopes filled, or we need to, do an assembly line type of deal to get these things done. And you have all of these volunteers coming in to be able to do that. That is great and amazing, because you're going to be able to get high volume things done in a short amount of time. But don't let the opportunity pass that you have 50 people in this room to hear this message of Dr. King, or hear this message of transformation, or hear this message of you're here today, but we're going to need you tomorrow and the next day and the next year. Here is where you can continue to be connected with us. And I think about across the nation, people are going, thousands upon thousands of people are going to be volunteering. What does it look like for every leader of volunteers, for every volunteer manager to literally connect the systemic harm as to why they're volunteering to why they're even showing up in the first place? Then we'll be able to not have people come in to try to fix people, and not look at people as projects, but look at them in their wholeness and fight systems and fight the adversity that comes from that. And that's so important when we're having everybody in the room and being able to share those sentiments. So what does it look like practically? All that I've said, what can you do to infuse transformation? And whether that's transformation of heart, whether that's transformation of knowledge, something they don't know to now what they know, transformation when it comes to lifestyle and living out their service outside of the four walls that they're going to be engaging in you with. What does it look like to actually do that? So we're going to talk specifically about what it means to set up for success. So the first thing that's so important, I know that a lot of you, may have what you're doing already. This is an addition to, and some things to consider as you move forward. So number one, actually communicating how their experience connects to Dr. King's legacy. Oh, and before I get started in talking about all of this is written down. All of this is going to be available for you. And so in addition to the recording, I've created resources and tools for you to go back on and be able to actually read what all of this is that I'm about to say. So don't feel like I have to feverishly write all of this stuff down and not be able to be in tune and not be able to tune in, because all of this is going to be available for you. And yes, I'm going to share them after the session. So setting up for success. Off the bat, we can sometimes go straight for the logistics. Who, what, when, where, when, how are we going to get the tools? How are we going to communicate this? I want us to start with, how will their experience connect to Dr. King's legacy? How will their experience connect to racial equity, to systemic change, to community success? What does the community that you're a part of, that you are in partnership with, what is their definition of success? And how can you infuse that and that be a deciding factor in what it looks like for the volunteers that are coming and serving alongside? And then it's going to be really important to communicate that in a project description, right? How is that going to be directly connected to your project description? And then I want us to go ahead and think about ongoing support. Before the volunteers come, before community enters the doors, I want you to already have an understanding of what are the things that they can do after today. What does it look like for them to continue to make impact after today? Is it, today we may be, I'm gonna keep using backpacks. Today we're gonna be stuffing backpacks, but for the rest of the year, we need mentors, right? Go ahead and have in place how they can continue with the rest of the year, because that's going to be very important when it comes to reflection. I want us during the training and orientation directly talk about what systems of harm are connected with the organization and how the organization is trying to combat those systems. Because we have to, once again, talk about it from a systemic perspective versus a you're coming in to fix a person who has a problem perspective. And I want us to do what we do on a regular basis. Talk about the community, how you see the community. I remember oftentimes when I was a volunteer manager and I was in the sector for so long that even myself started getting to a place where it was very transactional. You're coming in to help the community. Thank you so much. Goodbye. You're coming in to help the community. Thank you so much. Bye. Without the understanding that, no, this is my community, right? These are people that I have grown up with. These are people that I communicate with on a regular basis. And being able to say, you know what, I am going to talk about the community, how they're supposed to be spoken to and spoken with and spoken about in dignity and in wholeness and in human respect. And the way that we talk about community is also mirroring the way in which volunteers should think about the community. People who have opinions and thoughts and ideas and are a part of this work, and it's not coming in to save, but it's coming in to partner alongside whatever their dreams are. And we are just participating in that liberatory process. And so those are some things I want us to think about as we set up for success. So then that can be weaved into your orientation of why are you here in the first place, and understanding Dr. King's legacy. Another thing that we tend to do from a transactional perspective is we spit fast facts about Dr. King and his legacy versus really learning and understanding what that legacy was. And for some of you, you may be super versed in the beloved community and what Dr. King, what the movement was and what it stood for. And also maybe being able to connect on a personal level. I know for me, just the other day, there was a birthday, and we sung Happy Birthday, but it was the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday. If anybody knows the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday, put it in the chat so I know, like, you know what I'm talking about. I hope y'all know what I'm talking about. There's the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday, and that's what we sing all the time. We happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Okay. Michael was like, we know it. So when it comes to that, y'all, that we know that what's the history? Do volunteers know that history? Like, that specific song was written by Stevie Wonder for Dr. King in order to galvanize people around his birthday so that Coretta Scott could have those 6 million signatures to be able to turn in to make this a day of service. It took 32 years from his death so that all states recognize this. So oftentimes in the US, in other parts of the world, we try to have this very positive, be the change you want to see, like a Gandhi type of experience, or a positive communication around Dr. King, instead of saying, no, he wasn't popular. And no, this day took forever to come into fruition. And being able to communicate that to volunteers is so important for them to understand why this day is so important, but not just the day. How do you carry this moving forward for your service as a lifestyle? Another part that we need to continue to communicate, like I said a little bit earlier, from fixing people to addressing systems. Oftentimes volunteers who are not from the zip code, who are not from the demographic, who are, mostly white volunteers, they come in with a savioristic mentality due to privilege, due to racism, due to paternalism. And so oftentimes when they come in, they don't have a heart posture of partnering. There is a heart posture of, I'm coming in to fix people who made bad decisions about their life. And so this is me addressing that. So we need to openly talk about and say explicitly, we do not want you to come and save. This is a time for you to partner with the good that's already happening in the community. It's time to introduce the concept of community-centered volunteerism, and that the community is at the forefront of this, right? We are so glad you're here. We appreciate you coming, and this is about a partnership. This is about the community making decisions and goals for their future. And you are here. We hope you are here because you believe that this community belongs in the future as well, and that we don't want to create any barriers for their dreams and for their futures being realized. And so being able to talk to volunteers in that way is so important for them to say, you know what, this isn't a transactional thing. This is something that's going to be transformational. Talk about the specific systems you're trying to dismantle through volunteer opportunities through your organization. Not just talk about, of course, the problems that we see, because we know that we are not comprised of problems. There are also variables that are at play, economic injustices that are at play. Communicate what those are and explicitly communicate how the volunteer opportunity supports the dreams and decision-making of that community. And then we need to be explicit about communicating what next steps look like. Number one, tell them what transformational change looks like as a volunteer at your organization, at the organization that you work and that the community that you live in. Give them examples of transformational change, okay? Give them examples of what transaction is versus what transformation can be. And if transformation looks like being in deep relationship with the community that you serve, tell them what that deep relationship looks like. Give them an example of what that means. And something I want to specifically point out, it's going to be very important to navigate individual passions in group volunteer experiences. So what I mean by that is you may have a corporation that comes or a business that comes and they bring 50 volunteers. I want us to be able to say, I know that you came with your volunteers, a part of this corporation or a part of this organization, and you're coming in as an umbrella approach to create change. But I want you to think about, what does this individually look like for you to continue to work in transformation with our organization? That means after your corporation is gone, that means after this group has left, the work still needs to be done. The work will still be here, and we have a long road ahead of us. And that long road is only possible to continue to walk down if we individually get your help in making this possible. I want you to be bold in being able to say what you need and how this experience needs to go beyond the day. I want us to inspire the audience to consider MLK Day of Service projects as just a launching point for their commitment to a cause. And it's, in my opinion, it is absolutely okay to say everything that we're talking about in this training, take any part of this and communicate it out. And I think about if I was in front of a group of people who were doing an MLK Day of Service project, I literally want to be able to say, and I literally would say, this is a day. And what you did today was one more step closer to the journey that this organization will continue to take. And we want you to be on that journey with us. And the journey means that we want you to pledge to make a commitment on what it's going to look like for you to continue this work, even outside of these four walls, when you're thinking about how you want to serve and how you want to partner with community. And because this is a long game and a long journey, because we are fighting and combating systems, we here have a list of transformational opportunities that get us closer to the dreams of the community. And so we want you to pledge that this is a day one of a day 364 of 2 years from now, of 10 years from now. We want you to make that pledge. And so it's okay to be able to challenge them and communicate that long-term support and let them know that this is not over and we want to continue what it looks like. So here's what I've been talking about is a reflection at the end. Y'all, I don't care if you got to cut the actual opportunity short. You have to have reflection. You have to come back around and put the bow on the day while also giving them next steps and giving them an opportunity to really think through the day of. And so here are a couple of sample reflection questions that were created in order for you to help during that day. So number one, what preconceived notions did you carry about those you partnered with today? How has this opportunity reshaped that, right? And listen, we can't be afraid or nervous about silences or seemingly awkward pauses. It's good for them to sit there. It's good for them to feel that tension. It's good for them to sit there and have to mull over, why am I even volunteering in the first place? Because what that's going to do also is reshape and be like, dang, the whole time I was here, I didn't think about any of this, right? Or while I was here, I was just doing the act and I wasn't thinking about what that looked like. Y'all, I want the volunteers that walk away from your organizations from that day to be able to go back to their homes, to be able to go back to their church members, to be able to walk in a bar. And if someone says something racist or stereotypical or biased about the community that you serve, based on the information they got during that day, based on the reflection that they were able to experience and witness on that day, they're able to say, actually, let me introduce you to some new information. Actually, that's not accurate. Actually, I learned this instead. Actually, I used to feel that way, but now I don't. That's where the transformation comes. And so another question, what do others stereotypically say about this community? Or what do they say about this work? How can we combat those stereotypes and make a new narrative? So what will you now say moving forward that's in alignment with the truth, right? Now, what are you going to say moving forward that is in direct connection with not fixing people, but addressing systemic harm? And then thinking about, what are some new ways you're thinking about Dr. King and his legacy? It wasn't all butterflies and rainbows, right? During his experience during that time. And today, it's not butterflies and bunny rabbits, because the same people who say that they champion Dr. King and his legacy are the same people who are combating the legacy today. So what are some new ways you're thinking about his legacy? And lastly, in what ways can you incorporate transformational service as a lifestyle, as a way of life, not just leaving it here, not just being in a space of, I did this good thing and I get to leave. Let's make sure that we don't center volunteers on that day as being heroes of the community. They are partners in the work, and the community is their own leader, it's their own solution. And volunteers are coming to uplift that and to help support whatever it is that is. And so it's so important for us to have these reflection questions. And it's okay for, like I said, for the pause to happen. And it's okay to be like, you know what? I'll even say this, even to shape the time. Even if you want to introduce these questions at the beginning, and then have them, intentionally be thinking about it as they serve, as they partner, and then come on the back end and say, remember when I asked you these questions, what thoughts do you have about them? What things do you have to say about them? Being able to communicate that is going to be really important for that time. And so all of this is a step, I believe, in a direction of just being blatantly honest about what it is that the community needs. And it is deeper, like it's what you already said in those focus and listening groups: deeper connection, deeper relationship, ongoing support, something that someone said something that they feel deeply about, that they want to come again and be able to help. The ultimate goal is that someone from that day of service, a couple of people from that day of service, that's not the last time you see them. It's a prompt and a consideration of, we want you to be connected to a cause in a deep way, and we want to be an avenue for you being able to do that. And being very honest about it and very open about it, because oftentimes, y'all, it just doesn't happen. It's a thank you so much, see you next year. And we want to change the narrative around it so that it is a launching place for the next couple of years of their life, so they don't look at it as if something that can just be passed by. And so here are some tools and some resources that I created for all of us to be able to look at. And I think it's best to look at them, in this order. When we think about creating a successful day of service, writing community-centered project descriptions, and how to share Martin Luther King's legacy from a transformational perspective, all of this is seeped in and is rooted in community-centered volunteerism, or as I also like to call it, co-dreaming. And so looking at things like logistics, looking at things like, what type of wording and language am I using in my project descriptions? Being able to think, someone who is a community member who may have these certain barriers, are they going to be open? Are they going to have accessibility to the project or to the projects that we have created? If there is a bus system, I know here we have MARTA, what does it look like to be accessible in project descriptions and communicate, what time you may need to be there for the bus route, or if there's going to be lunch, and if lunch is provided, the tools that may need to have to be there on that day. What type of tools are you going to be using? Being able to be very explicit and what that means, so that the community feels connected to the service as well. And remember, we are, as you all know, none of us have that understanding of like it's being done to us versus being done for us. And so when we look at the to us and for us, this is how we do service alongside community, with the community, and making sure volunteers look at them and look at us like partners for change, instead of people who need to be saved. And I need to come on this day to do this big grand gesture, and I feel good about it, versus, wow, you know what, this stuff takes more than a day, and how committed am I to being a part of the work. And I will say, I know for a fact, you know, infusing this and communicating the things in this way, everybody won't come back. And that's okay. But the people who this resonates with, the people that hear you, the people that see you, that see the work that needs to be done, that connects the systemic harm, and that want to have lasting change, we are creating a space that if they want to come back, they can and they will. That's what we're doing when we talk about moving from transactional to transformational. What can we do to prep ourselves for success, so that if somebody wants to continue the work, they have the opportunity to continue, and to do it in a way that's not saving, but in a way that's community centered. And so these tools and resources are going to be also available on the resource page on the website. You'll get a link to that, and they will also be sent to you via email by Alexia. And yeah, I would love to now open the floor to hear your thoughts, to hear anything that resonated with you. And if you have any questions or comments, or any moments where something really stuck out, I just want to open the doors for that to take place before we continue on with our day. And you can feel free to do the go off mute, put it in the chat, or do the raise hand feature, and I can call you out. But just want to take an opportunity to do that if there's any thoughts.
Hi, Brianna. Thank you so much for joining us again today. I really loved what you explained to us about some of the reflection questions around the day of service, and how we can provide that for our volunteers as a way of sort of framing the experience and framing what they're supposed to get out of the experience and the outcome for them. I think that would be really helpful for them. And I think, without saying too much about my organization, I feel like it would be helpful for our organizations as well. Like, when we're looking at what we're creating and what we're developing for these days of service, having those questions in mind will help us that gives us a good focus to have if we intentionally create projects that will be able to elicit these responses. And also, like, if we do a project and we ask our volunteers, like, what did you get out of this? And we don't like the answer, if they say nothing, if they say I wasn't really connected, that sort of thing, that's a good tip off for us as well. So I can see this being like having a real double-edged benefit for volunteers and for their community, and for also us as community organizers, and the kind of work that we do and how we go about developing volunteer opportunities. So I wanted to sort of point that out, that there's a lot of ways that could work to our benefit. So thanks again for introducing that to us.
Yeah, Mandela, thank you so much for sharing that. That's so real. I love the point that you made about, being able to have this time and the reflection part. And if volunteers are saying answers that are not necessarily aligning with like what the intended experience was supposed to be, being able to say, note taken, what does that mean, or what does that look like? And being able to construct it in a way of even, being able to say, because that was addressed this time, what does it look like for us to reshape that moving forward, and being able to really call it out, at the same time. I love how that can just signal different things and that can communicate different things. And especially when it comes to the way in which we see volunteerism from like a transactional perspective of being able to communicate, we don't want this to be transactional. And oftentimes volunteer opportunities can be. What does it look like, to not make this transactional? So no, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Michael, you said, thank you for expressing this with us. It captured the feelings of our collective experiences in this work. Thank you so much for sharing that. I am right there with you. Definitely, I've been in volunteer, management for a while, and to consistently see, in my experience, volunteers who come in who are white, and then the community looks like me, and having to navigate, do I do my job in terms of, quote unquote, making these folks come back? And of course, even in that, there's a scarcity mindset of like, all volunteers have to come here, they have to stay here, and we have to hold on to everybody. And in holding on to everybody, we coddle them, we make excuses for them, we don't tell the truth to them about harm, and then we end up not actually completing and doing the mission that we once set out to do. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Hi, I'm
Hey,
Teresa.
Teresa.
I'm Teresa with Atlanta Street Center, and I've been doing volunteer work for many years. And I know that there's this sense that um, white people, they come in with this savior mentality. I mean, I've seen the gamut. What has been difficult over the years is uh, uh, getting the consistent support from within our community. So I am speaking specifically speaking of the African American community, is consistently getting that support. One of the things I found with the Martin Luther King Project, that day of service, and we haven't committed to it very many times, but what I have found is that for me, that is the one day that I didn't have to worry about race or color, because so many people can relate to why we do the Martin Luther King Day of Service, and that uh, because most of our kids are African American, we primarily serve African Americans and other people of color, that I saw the ability of other races come in and connect with our kids. And so one project we did was volunteers came in and helped them make their signs to be a part of the Martin Luther King March. And I asked the volunteers to do a very simple task: help the kids find a quote or something that reflected Dr. King's legacy, but also share your experiences and share your favorite quote. And they connected with the kids. So um, I do hear in one breath about the savior mentality and whites coming into the communities of color and supporting us, but I haven't seen consistently people from the community support our kids. So I know that's a deeper discussion, but
Right.
I just wanted to point out that I have seen where, at least on the Martin Luther King Day of Service, that all races could connect um, on one common theme, and that is the beloved community. So
Yeah.
whether you were from that community or not, you have the ability to come in and support that community.
Yeah. No, Teresa, thank you for sharing that. That's real. I love that. A couple of things I want to point out is, number one, I work with organizations and nonprofits and consulting work, and, you know, of course, having partners, you know, all along my career. And you'd be surprised that what you did right there of come in and partner together and create art or create something and talk about the quote and why, that in itself is so that's a transformational thing to do, because so many organizations will literally say, come in and help these little kids make a sign like for the day of, without having a connection of community or conversation, or being able to prompt them to have conversations and mirror the way in which they need to have conversations. So I love your example, because that in itself absolutely is a piece of that transformational work. Another piece, why I also, oh, I forgot to say, I have a video as well. That's a 30-minute video on how to connect like 4 Dr. MLK quotes to transformational service. And it's so interesting. One of the things I communicate in that video is that white folks are really comfortable with Dr. King. I mean, they're really comfortable with him. They're really comfortable with, you know, the legacy. And it is a very good introduction to systemic harm. If you want to talk about and connect it to systemic harm and the ways in which we are combating harm through volunteerism, a gateway, I guess you could say, is Dr. King, because I see that too, Teresa. People would, you know, most white folks will jump through hoops and be like, yep, you know, I can't necessarily rock with this, but I love Dr. King. And then being able to, you know, communicate it through that, I think is really important. Yes, absolutely. You opened up the can of a whole nother conversation around like our folks, right? And community and what that looks like. While also, you know, recognizing what it means for that particular day, you know, for us, and the ways in which we also volunteer, and how oftentimes that informal volunteering can be the thing that we do outside of being able to communicate and do that through an organization. While also knowing that there absolutely is that gap of support in certain areas. And so I do want to make that known that I have been there, and I see you, and I hear exactly what you're saying. And I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you for all your thoughts, Teresa. Leanne, I don't mind. Okay, Michael, see you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I am wrapping up. And yeah, Leanne, I've got to the point where these silences is a thing. I'll sit here and drink some tea, okay, and wait for people, because I don't mind people processing. I'm a processor, so, and I'm an introvert, so I don't mind sitting and waiting. But thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your energy, for your thoughts, and I can hand it back over to Mandela to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you so much, Brianna, for coming and sharing more with us about the work that you do and your incredible perspectives. I cannot wait to get this recording and to get all the resources that you have available for us, because I benefited a lot just from hearing it the first time. So I'm sure I'll get more out of it the next time I go through it. So thank you again for joining us. We are going to have to close very shortly, but I wanted to open up the floor really quick. To anyone that might have any announcements, anything going on in your organizations, or anything that you would like to share with the group about things you have going on, be it volunteer requests or anything else that you